my guest, Miss Ayomi Obuseh, is rocking to the music. She's already hooked on the, the Earl Ingram show. You are the statewide Black Constituency Organizer for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Wisconsin. Good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Let's talk about the Black community, the importance role that our community is going to play in this election. I keep telling people, President Biden and Donald Trump, and they just keep coming to Wisconsin. They just keep coming to Milwaukee. The 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 power in our vote is extremely important and key, as it has been historically, to whom the president of the United States is going to be. As you move around in these Black communities and talk about representing Planned Parenthood, what are you hearing?
Yeah, I am hearing frustration, especially in the beginning before, it was Kamala, and just the Biden administration, as though we were feeling as we are marginalized, and feeling unheard and feeling as though politicians and policies were out of touch with their community. And it still felt today. It's not a feeling that it goes away over time, but I think with Kamala stepping in, with her framework of talking especially about reproductive health, we're seeing more joy, we're seeing more hope. And now with organizations like ours who are, been doing this work and trying to empower our communities, we're seeing people finding their spirit back and putting that into this election. And so like we know, when we win Wisconsin, we win the nation. And when you win the Black vote, you're securing your vote for everyone else, because a lot of the experiences that we feel is felt by everyone. And so when we center ourselves in our community, we start to realize that we're centering everyone.
You know, it is it's pretty clear that your focus, and when you come into the Black community, is the younger population, because my generation votes. What are you hearing? Because there's some in our community, in the younger generation, that doesn't see uh, voting as something that's going to change their reality. But when you talk about reproduction, does that add something to the conversation?
It does add something to the conversation, but I also think that we often tend to say, like, young people need to get more involved. This group needs to get more involved when it's really intergenerational mobilization. We need to hear the stories of how our leaders, our grandparents have made an impact around us. Everything is political. And when we realize that the reason why we can get off on Saturday, minimum wage, everything is that we can create change around us, we realize that we have no choice but to use our voice. And so I think what we need to do, and what young people are definitely starting to do, is make movement and action irresistible. Make it something that you look forward to because you realize that you have the power to do something about your surroundings. And reproductive justice and reproductive health is something that we interact with a lot. But we also felt what it was like to have our rights taken away. And so to have an impact in something that became something that we forgot how impactful it was, how it changes our lives so much, and realizing that we can do something more, started to make it irresistible and started to, use social media to kind of expand that topic.
So if you're just joining us, I'm joined by Ayomi Obuseh. She is the statewide Black Constituency Organizer for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Wisconsin. You talk about reproduction, productive rights. And when you're talking to women and young ladies, yeah, their ears are wide open, but how do the young men, how is there any connection at all with them to this fight?
Absolutely. One of the greatest things about our ambassador program, our Black ambassadorship, is that we have men joining on, Black men joining on our program. And it's not something that is new. Black men have been taking care of Black women. And so when we acknowledge that, hey, like, the birthing process, families, includes men in those conversations, then we start to realize, like, this is how we start to build power, because we have to have all of our parts. We have to have men included. And so we do in our program as well. But also, I think that just looking at the research that we've done, so we've done research for a little over a year about how we talk about reproductive health in the Black community. And we found that, men often don't feel like they're included in this movement because of our language. But it's so important that we center everyone. Of course, highlighting queer Black women, but also men as well, because they do have a role to play in families and the longevity of our Black communities.
I'm pretty sure that this listening audience of mine does not know about the death rate of birth with and the inherent dangers Black women face in giving birth.
Yep. It does not matter your economic status. We see Beyonce, we saw Serena Williams talk about their birthing experiences and how they had to advocate for their own lives within experts with experts. And so this is something that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. Black women are 5 times more likely to die during childbirth. And so although Planned Parenthood, for example, we don't offer prenatal services, we work with organizations like Harambe Village, Maroon Calabash, Black Child Development Institute, who center Black women in the birthing process. We work with doulas and talk about the importance of doulas in our communities. Because if we're talking about reproductive justice, we also have to talk about dignity as well, and the intersectionality and everything.
So
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 yeah.
when so when you're talking about reproductive health and all of those different things, what's different between what Kamala Harris and the Democrats are offering than what Donald Trump and the Republicans are offering? Is there a distinct difference in what people can expect?
Well, the distinct difference is the conversation about family usually does not look like a Black or brown family. The conversation about choice in itself is privilege. Black people don't have the privilege to decide between two options. Usually, it's a hard decision to make about your health care, especially when it comes to abortion care. And so, there's a lot of privilege in the language that they're using right now in their conversations and their debates. Freedom and privacy are other words that don't include us in that. Even when we look at Roe was still lacking in so many ways because it included those languages in it. So we have a long way to go. And Kamala's campaign, we're seeing that she is starting to center us in their language and work with organizations who are doing the work, like Sister Song.
We got a lot of callers, and so we don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to get out of the way and connect you with the callers. Let's go to Karina from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Karina. You say what?
Good morning. Good morning, Naomi. You're doing a great, very needed job, and I am in the healthcare, and what I hear from the Republican side of the patients we have is that one thing prevalent that, Black community especially using the abortions as birth control. And you were talking about doula. Is there a possibility? I have several doulas. I'm working with the credentials, and they're having a kind of hard time to get through the clients and to get through that portion of the education and caring and managing and helping the Black community with the whole process of being pregnant and birth, and most importantly after pregnancy as well, because the coverage is so limited after
Mhm.
pregnancy that 6 weeks is ridiculous.
Hey,
Mhm.
hey,
Can you
Corinna, thank you very much for the call. First, explain what a doula is.
Yeah. So a doula is a birth worker, similar to a midwife. They stay with you from before you are pregnant, during, and after, and they're your advocate within our healthcare system, or even at home doing home births as well.
All right. So you want to respond to the question Karina was asking? Uh,
Mhm. Yeah. So, in terms of, I think the question, I'll try to make sure I remember it, is asking how to connect with doulas. So, the process is very, um, a lot of people get their certification and they begin doing their work and they aren't attached to a collective. Because of that, and because there's not a registry list like you would find with real estate agents, it's hard to see like where doulas exist in Wisconsin unless they're connected with a larger network. So we work with the larger networks, but often, even in our staff, we have ambassadors that are also doulas on the side as well. So we interact with them in a unique ways because they show up in very unique and needed ways to meet the community where they're at. So I would say partnering up with a collective is the first place to start if you wanted to do more work with Planned Parenthood and navigating those steps.
so my guess is Ayomi Obuseh, and she is a statewide Black constituency organizer for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Wisconsin. Let's go to Al from Milwaukee. Good morning to you, Al. You say what?
Um, well, Earl, you know I'm the president of my father's house.
Right.
We've been teaching parenting to men and women since 1994. This is the first I've heard of this organization and this lady. I need her phone number.
Right. Ayomi, he is exactly correct. He is the father of, the work that he does. And so, can you give him a phone number?
Yeah, I will actually better give you an email, so that way we can follow up. And for everyone else, it'll be
Too fast,
ayomi.obuseh@ppwi.org.
too fast.
So, Al, here's what we'll be able to do, Calvin. So they can get this from where, if because he's not going to have time to write all that down.
Yeah. I'll provide links in the show notes for the podcast, and you can find that at civicmedia.us/shows or Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, so we'll make sure, Al, that you can connect with her. Thank you very much for the call. Ayomi, there's so much to discuss. I mean, this is what we're talking about now in this next 25, 28 days run. But after that, and people need to be aware, there's just tremendous amounts of work to be done in educating young women and young boys and young men about all of this. So your work doesn't end with the election.
No, no, we are here. We are going to continue to go, run as far as we can, and bring more people into this movement.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make sure I reach back out to you and we do this from time to time. All right. We're going to make
Absolutely.
sure that happens. Hang on the phone lines, 855-752-4842. Ayomi Obuseh. I love that name. She is the statewide Black constituency organizer for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Wisconsin. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the last few minutes of the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 855-752-4842. My guest is Ayomi Obuseh. And Ayomi, I've been thinking about changing my name. And after hearing that, how about Toussaint? Toussaint. But anyway, she represents statewide Black constituency organization for the Planned Parenthood Advocates of Wisconsin. Let's go to CJ. Good morning to you, CJ. You say what?
Thank you for taking my call, Earl, and it is a beautiful name. Thank you for taking my question. And I've struggled with, you speak of women's health care rights, And I have a question. Is it true, a fact that I've heard, that more black babies are aborted than are born every year?
So I feel like with those types of questions, oftentimes we're losing a lot of nuance in the conversation, which is why even Planned Parenthood, we're kind of removing away from the narrative of like abortion and talking about like ending a pregnancy. And again, language is so important. In terms of the rate in which we have ended a pregnancy, there's so much. There's so much into that conversation of why, why that had to happen, why that decision was made. And so would suggest for sure doing a little bit more research into that, because it to simplify it would be a disservice to our community.
I think that's well said, young lady. Let's go to Tom from LA. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, you were saying how important messaging is. That I think that Planned Parenthood should start saying either a woman's right to choose or big government's right to choose. Because of the fact that just because a woman has the right to choose doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to terminate a pregnancy. It means that it's her choice. And instead of making women into second class citizens or cattle that our government is doing to them, women are wonderful human beings that should be treated with the respect, and also to know that they actually have a smart brain and can make the choice that's best for her family, and for the men in their lives. So I just would ask, you were talking about messaging or about wording. It really is the message. It's either government's right to choose or a woman's right to choose.
Hey, Tom, thank you very much for the call. You want to respond to that, Ayomi?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think, when we talk about reproductive health, it is a narrative that has gone in so many different directions. Now we're even seeing Republicans are starting to use that. And what does that mean to them? Everybody has their own different definition of reproductive health care and justice these days. It has just become such a highly politicized word. Our bodies are highly politicized at the moment and have been for very, many years. But yes, we should be naming women. We should be naming people and families, and we should be calling folks out. And so I think Planned Parenthood has a focus, especially with our teams, like our Black organizing program and our Rais and PPGen, to do outreach, to reaffirm language, empower people, and talk about their narratives that exist.
You're hearing Republicans say, well, we don't think that the Roe versus Wade decision is going to impact much in this election because, it's not as big a deal as it was, several years back. What do you say to that? Have women forgotten?
No,
No.
no. No, we have not forgotten. Before I joined this role, I was a canvasser. I was going door to door when Roe fell. And when it was overturned, I was there hugging families every single day, because of the experiences that have been felt and are currently experienced today.
And all women from all backgrounds,
All
from
Black,
all demographics.
everyone, and socioeconomic class. It does not matter. If you have money, if you don't have money, you'll find your way into getting reproductive health care, coming to Planned Parenthood, and getting your needs met.
Young lady, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I will be reaching back out to you, especially before this election.
Awesome.
That's
Look forward to
that's
it.
Miss Ayomi Obuseh, and she is again the statewide Black Community Constituency Organizer for Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin.